Okay, can I have everyone's attention, please? Thank you, everyone. And I'd like to welcome everyone to our fiscal year 21 budget, hopefully approval. And we're going to be taking up three individual budgets, the first being Aquifer Protection District, KCEMS, which is Emergency Medical Services, and of course, Kootenai County. Attending are Commissioners Duncan, Brooks, and Filios. And also joining us up here at the podium is Civil Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Dave Ferguson, who's here to keep us out of trouble so we don't step on our faces, which we do occasionally. And so, do we have any changes to the agenda?
I move that we amend the agenda to add items H and I, even though it was posted more than 24 hours ago. I just want to make that clear.
I'd second the motion.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan.
Aye.
Chairman Filios.
Aye, and the motion is carried to add the two items dealing with foregone taxes and the CARES property tax relief funding. Okay, so without any further ado, and we don't have any other changes to the agenda, we'll move on to fiscal year 21 budget hearing pursuant to Idaho Code 31-1605. This will be a discussion. And who will lead us off? Nisha? Nisha will lead us off with the Aquifer Protection District proposed budget for fiscal year 21. Thank you, Nisha.
All right, thank you. Presentation. So while that's loading up, I'm Nisha Mayani with the Aquifer Protection District. I'm the chair. So what I want to do today is just give a brief background on the Aquifer Protection District, why we exist, and then I'll talk about the budget, recommended budget elements in brief, and we'll go from there. So, all right, the Aquifer Protection District was approved by the voters and established by the Board of Commissioners in 2007 for the protection of groundwater quality in the Rathdrum Prairie Aquifer. So the Aquifer Protection District Committee, which I am a part of, is specifically tasked with these three items on the bottom of the page: developing work program elements for recommendation to the commissioners, proposing methods of cooperation among public agencies, and developing a budget recommendation for the commissioners for consideration with the annual budget, which is why we're here tonight. So for those who don't know, or maybe don't know, new to our area, the Rathdrum Prairie Aquifer, it's a pretty significant boundary within Kootenai County here on the map. There are regulations that protect groundwater quality specific to the Rathdrum Prairie Aquifer through EPA and through DEQ. As well as Panhandle Health District with their 5-acre rule. The purpose of the Kootenai County Aquifer Protection District is not to create more regulation. It is really to support those agencies and the regulations that are in place, and also to provide education to the community about this very unique and great water source that we have that serves a majority of our population. So, in summary for 2020-2021, the Aquifer Protection District Committee received 9 requests for funding, which totaled $487,574. We are recommending $462,974, and there's an additional $83,900 for internal purposes, which I'll talk about shortly. So the total budget for this next fiscal year would be $546,874. Some specific goals that the Aquifer Protection District has for this next year is an update to the Aquifer Atlas, which many of you may have seen in the past, pursuing critical recharge and area easements. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, and then just monitoring the requests that we've received for measurable impacts. Just to make sure that the funds that we are seeing are being put to good use. There is no recommended change to the current parcel fee, which is $5.74 annually. So first part of the work program elements is funding to DEQ. This portion of the work program is actually funded in full by BNSF. What DEQ does with the funds is monitor the BNSF refueling depot. They have some administrative oversight over that, and then education and outreach and some technical assistance with Panhandle Health District. Second part of the work program elements is Panhandle Health District, which is also a considerable amount of the budget that we have, but they have a large amount of work that they do in critical materials, and then the sewer and stormwater management, water quality sampling, and also additional coordination with DEQ. They work close together. Some of the other smaller requests that we received this year, the Confluence Project. This was also funded in the last fiscal year. It's an educational program that's targeted to 10th through 12th grade students, and it's focused on water resources. There's class and field studies for a year, and then at the end of it, the students present what they've learned at the Idaho Youth Water Summit at NIC. Additional funding to Spokane River Forum. That's both for their waste directory, which has been a good program that helps people know where to dispose of things properly, and you can find that online, as well as just an annual conference. And then we also have provided or recommending funding to the Kootenai Shoshone Soil and Water Conservation District for their growers conference. And a couple other ones, the U.S. Department of Interior, they have 4 agromet stations over the aquifer that provide data for water consumptive use. And then this year, this will be a one-time project, the Kootenai County Fairgrounds monitoring well. So they are looking to drill a well at the fairgrounds, and that will be used for 4-H students for educational purposes. And then internally, I talked briefly, the big things that the committee is working on supporting internally is just continued education wherever we can provide that education, and support through local school curriculums, Chamber of Commerce Business Fair, the Aquifer Atlas I mentioned, and then the critical recharge zone easement protection. So there was 3 areas that we were looking at: Rathdrum Sump, the Hayden Lake Sump, and Hauser Creek Sump. The Hayden Lake Sump has actually been taken care of by an outside party, so we are now focused on Rathdrum and Hauser Creek. And I think with that, this is just a summary of the budget for this year. So we're actually about 1.4% less than in the fiscal year 20 budget. And that is what I have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Nisha from the board? None. Thank you, Nisha. Appreciate it. Okay, so our second item, KCEMS, Emergency Medical Services. Our new chief, Bill Keeley. Welcome, Chief, and congratulations again.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll wait for my slide to come up. I like that one better than mine. I'm a chief. I can talk about anything. It doesn't matter. Commissioners, thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about our budget. Just some background. Our budget went in front of a public hearing on July 30th, where we had no public comment, and then was approved by our Joint Powers Board at that point, the entire budget. What you see in front of you is our entire budget, which 5.5 million of it is by user fees. The rest of it is tax money. What we're proposing this year is the 3% increase, or $83,925, and then the new development of $77,190. And then we get a certain amount of tax money that's not levied from the license plate sales and some sales tax money that comes in. So we have a total budget increase on the tax side of $182,916 with all that taken into account. Can you roll down or next slide? For us, it works out to be about 0.00013099 as a levy rate, or 13 cents per thousand on assessed value. That is a decrease. Right now, we're at 13.8 cents on $1,000 assessed value. With that, with the new assessment rate, with your approval on the 2021 budget, that will make KCMSS the second lowest taxing district, EMS taxing district, that provides paramedic level services using full-time employees in the state. And we are actually 0.002 above Twin Falls in our levy rates. So even with the increases, our levy rates are going down, and we're still staying the second best levy rate and bargain in the state. And different than Twin Falls County, we have 9 ambulances staffed today. They only have 6. So that is what we're requesting, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions from the board? No. Chief, can I ask you to just elaborate on a couple things very briefly? Describe the operation, the distribution of the ambulances, and the distinction, for most people's benefit, if you will, between BLS and ALS, the services we perform, please.
So Kootenai County EMS is the oversight operation for emergency medical services in the county. We work hand in hand with the fire departments, where KCMSS owns all the equipment. We do all the billing. We provide all the supplies. We provide all the medical oversight. The fire departments provide the employees, the actual employees, and we reimburse them for that expense. Right now, we are running 6 paramedic level ambulances a day. 2 of them are in the Post Falls area, 2 of them are in the Coeur d'Alene area. 1 is in Hayden, 1 is in Rathdrum. We also staff 3 full-time EMT or advanced EMT level ambulances, 1 in Spirit Lake, 1 in Athol, and 1 in Worley. And we provide paramedic level services to those outside areas from the Corps. So we run a paramedic level ambulance to rendezvous with those 3 ambulances. The idea is we can get someone who is highly trained on scene immediately and begin care, and then the paramedic is just slightly behind to take over that patient if needed. If not, the EMTs can deal with it, and the paramedics go back into service to pick up the next call. On top of that, we support the fire departments in their ability to staff 22 fire engines throughout the county. 11 of them are staffed by paramedics. The rest are staffed by EMTs. And they are in a first response role. Since they are scattered throughout the various fire stations, they can actually get there quicker. Of those, 15 of them are staffed by career personnel. The rest are staffed by volunteers. So we support 3 volunteer agencies as well throughout the county. Micah Kid Island Fire, Eastside Fire, and Hauser Fire. So we financially support their provision of EMS. Since, again, in the rural areas, they can get there much faster than I can get an ambulance there. We make sure they're highly trained. We provide them with all their equipment so they can begin care, and we can get an ambulance there at whatever level is appropriate to pick up the patient, transport them, and do whatever additional care needs to be done. We have 6 ambulances in reserve that can be staffed during emergencies or during times of high volume. The fire departments will move people around to allow us to staff additional ambulances as needed, either if we had a mass casualty incident or if the volume of the system got very, very busy at any time. And we provide all of the EMS in the county, both 911 emergent as well as interfacility transport. So we're a busy system, running about 16,000 calls a year, which makes us the 3rd busiest system in the state.
Thank you.
Certainly, any other questions I
Appreciate
can answer?
Leslie, Bill? Thanks
Thank
so
you
much,
very
Chief.
much.
Chief Bill Keeley. Okay, so moving on to, I guess, what is our final segment insofar as the budget is concerned, which is Kootenai County. And addressing us is Clerk Jim Brennan. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. And I want to thank everyone who is tuned in tonight and watching, and those in attendance, because I want to say I send a special thanks to all of our departments in this county this year. They provided information timely, and I want to actually thank the three of you for the ease of this year's budget presentation. It made it much easier for me to perform my statutory duty according to 31-1605, which is to provide to the board a balanced budget for your consideration. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to two people that have really ran with this project this year, and they've done a marvelous job. That is our accountant, Michelle Chiaramonte, and our finance director, Dina Darrow. And so with that, I'll be quiet and let them talk.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
Are we ready?
All yours, Dina.
I'm going to stand over here and vanna the screen. Yes, I do want the clicker. Thank you. So, I have good news. Jim let us have a short presentation tonight. So, everybody, we're just going to get to the meat and potatoes of things. We did, however, and Michelle went into great detail and provided a packet that's been enhanced this year. So back on the table back there when you walked in, there's a stack of colored papers that look a lot like this presentation that give you a lot of detail as to this year's budget. And I want to thank everybody who's tuning in at home. We have a pretty full house considering social distancing, and I do echo Jim's sentiments that the departments were really hands-on this year. Everybody worked really well together, and given our impossible circumstances with COVID, I think things went very smoothly. So kudos to everyone. So here we are, and I like to start out with a quote. So our favorite budget guru, Dave Ramsey, was kind of our guide this year, because good news, 0% tax increase. So let's take a quick look. So there were some key influences this year on the budget. Obviously, COVID was one of them. We have been dealing with things that we've never seen before. We've had to provide services in new ways. We've had less employees in their jobs. We've been trying to deliver services as best we can with this and deal with the COVID of fallout or the fallout of COVID, excuse me. Operating expenses is another area. Since we are taking 0%, we actually decreased our operations budget this year in a big way. So this year, to make things easier for the departments, we said, hey, we know the cost of things are going up. Let's just give everybody just 2% right off the bat, and then we're not going through with nickels and dimes trying to figure out how we're going to pay for stuff. We'll just give you 2%, run with it. Well, when COVID hit and the commissioners decided, we really want to try to take 0 this year because people are hurting, the departments dug in and they actually reduced their budgets. So they didn't take the 2% unless they absolutely had to, and in the final analysis, we're actually below where we were last year. So that's pretty remarkable, and it just shows that county employees really do care about the taxpayer in a big way. Also, personnel expense. We had a wage study last year. Some of that was unfinished, so the commissioners managed to finish that and get that done, and we were able to give a small increment of COLA, again, giving the cost of living going up. We were still able to do that in a small way. So this year's budget, $98,989,569. If you were here last year, because I know this is where you want to be in August at the end of the month, is in a budget meeting. That number was 101 million, so quite a bit less. Also, our property tax, that number only changed for our new growth. No new property tax was taken. So let's look at the prior years to illustrate that. FY19, 94, boom, 2020, we're up over 100. Now we're back down to 98. Notice that the property tax amounts are moving from 49 to 51. All that was new growth, folks. And that new growth was on 2 with a B billion of property increase in value. So here is just a high level of the 3 areas where we budget: our personnel expense, capital projects, operating expense. So our personnel expenditures increased. There are a few things that were driving that. We did a small cost of living adjustment. We also are dealing with increased medical expenses. Anybody who works for an employer who's paying medical benefits, we know that those costs continue to rise. So this year, the county absorbed that 4%. We also had an audit from the state of Idaho for workers' compensation rates, and that drove up our costs for employees because a lot of the classifications of employees, those percentages that the employer has to pay, went up. So that affected us on a large scale. We have over 800 employees. I also want to give a shout out especially to the sheriff's office. They have a number of open positions, and in order to save money and balance the budget, they actually gave up a large number of positions and froze those for this year so that we could put that money back into the pot to balance the budget. We also added 5.5 new justice service positions because there's huge pressure on our justice services. That's the biggest area of growth. We also have a new parks position and a solid waste position. Both of those positions are paid for with restricted funds, so no tax dollars are used. Operating expenses. This is one to be proud of. $2.4 million. Everybody is tighten their belt. Everybody is literally fasting right now. But we had to do it because of COVID. So everybody took a deep dive and took a close look, and people came forward and offered to cut their budgets. So major capital, not very much this year. Last year, we were close to $10 million in capital projects. As you can see, a little under half of that is solid waste. Again, they are funded independently from tax money. Most of this is software. We had a vehicle lease for the sheriff because last year we decided to do a 3-year lease to catch up on their vehicles. So this was year 2, so we had to put that in there. And the rest is just solid waste. So very low capital this year. And we also wanted to bring to your attention the fund balance because there's always a lot of conversations about fund balance. Notice this line. This year, as well as cutting the budget, we decided that we want to preserve our reserves. So we only used about $1.4 million of assigned free-flowing cash fund balance. The rest of our fund balance use was in restricted funds. As you can see, this big spike here, we all remember the jail expansion. That was our biggest use of fund balance. But as you can see, this board has taken it upon themselves to build those reserves back up for a rainy day because we just don't know what the future holds. And then this is the same thing again in a bar graph, sometimes a little bit easier to see. Here's our budget by elected official, from smallest to largest. Well, maybe not. It is smallest to largest. Okay, so you can see the spread. BOCC, that's your biggest one. That also includes solid waste. It also includes any increases. We have pooled budgets in there, so BOCC is going to look heavy. And that's it.
And
So,
my comment is only the slide talking about COVID where you're shaking hands. I didn't care for that one.
okay.
But anyway, what I will say is, Commissioners, this is our budget for your consideration this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dina. Thank you, Jim. Okay, so that concludes the presentation for the Kootenai County fiscal year 21 budget. And what I'm going to do at this time with regard to the three budgets just presented is open it up for public comment. 3 minutes per person, and we do have a timer. That's Keith Taylor. And when it goes to yellow, green says go. Yellow means you've got 30 seconds left, and then red is stop. Does anyone wish to comment? And if you do, if there's anyone physically here, please drop off your slip with Tina, and we will need your name and address, or anyone that might be joining us via Zoom. Anyone care to comment? Jerry? Okay.
Jerry Johnson, 6903 North Valley in Dalton Gardens. I also represent the North Idaho Fair Board. Just want to take a minute and express our thanks to the three commissioners for their support this year. And it's one of the easier years I think we've had. In light of coronavirus, which has killed our budget, but overall we feel good about the support.
Well, thank you. We could always stand a compliment here and there.
Right.
Anyone else wish to comment? Clerk Brennan.
I'm just going to comment on Jerry's comment.
Uh-oh.
The most exciting news that we've heard recently is that next year's fair is going to be 10 days. I'm surprised Jerry did not say that. I mean, we all missed the fair this year. So we got twice as many days to enjoy it next year. That's all I have.
Very
Thank you, Jim. Okay. All right, then. Anyone else? Hearing none. Okay, so we'll move on.
David.
Oh, David, I'm sorry.
Have one person on Zoom that may want to speak. Would now be an okay time?
Absolutely.
The Zoom participant is Mary V. If you'd like to comment on the budget this evening, the microphone is yours.
We'll need your, I think we just got your name, Mary, but we'll also need your address, please.
She or he is not unmuting, even though I've asked.
Okay, I guess we'll proceed then. All right, so that concludes our limited public testimony, and we'll move on to deliberations. And that's a discussion that occurs among the three county commissioners. So does anybody, so with deliberations, we might as well begin with Aquifer Protection District?
We need to make a motion because it's a hearing.
Oh, go right ahead.
So I move that we end public testimony and enter into deliberations.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan.
Aye.
Chairman Philios.
Aye. Entering into deliberations. Let's take up Aquifer Protection District. Any thoughts?
I'm fine with it as presented.
So am I.
And so are you. And I should point out that there was an error in the APD budget, but it was basically an overcount of some $40,175. So the figure that you're seeing at $546,874 is actually a decrease by that amount from the published budget. So we're good. It went in the right direction. And so then, may I have a motion, please?
Sure. I move that we approve the Aquifer Protection District budget in the amount of $546,874.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan.
Aye.
Chairman Philios.
Aye, and the motion is carried. Moving on to KCEMS. Thoughts? Concerns? None?
I'm good with it.
Okay, motion.
I move that we approve the KCEMSS budget for 2021.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks.
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan.
Aye.
Chairman Philios.
Aye, and that is a motion to approve as proposed by Chief Keeley. Thank you. All right, then. Okay, we're good? Okay. So we're moving on to item number 3, which is a motion regarding the largest of the three, which is Kootenai County budget. Thoughts?
Well, from the beginning, I have been in touch with the citizens, and my concern is with this, the pandemic, the shutdowns, the loss of revenue, the loss of business. No employee in Kootenai County was furloughed. We were very blessed to continue operations. We were very blessed to have different options to work from home, to handle things, handle services over the phone, do some Zoom meetings. And I'm just concerned that giving public employees raises at this time is not really the right thing to do. So I love our employees, and I'm very proud of them. And if they work here to get rich, then they may not be in the right spot. I think it's a great place to work, and I just, I want to pay our employees the right amount. Everybody got raises last year, and I just think with so many businesses going under in our county, I just am concerned that how it looks. And I think that we could have paid for more things that we took out of fund balance had we not gone ahead with some raises. I won't be taking my 2% raise, so I just feel that strongly about it. And the judges in the whole state of Idaho have turned down their raises as well. The legislature gave them 2% raises, and the judges throughout the state have turned that down. With that, our medical went up $417,000, which the county is absorbing that. We did not put any of that extra burden on our employees. So right there, that was a portion of the raise. And just not to forget that our benefits range in value of $9 to $11 an hour, depending on how much the employees make. So I think that's all I have to say.
Bill, thoughts?
I think we have a very well-crafted budget. I think everybody gave a little bit. I want to keep the good people we have. I don't want people in the county to have to suffer just to keep up with the suffering other people at places that it may not be quite as much as it's made out to be. There are places in the country that have tremendous hardships. We're blessed not to be one of those places. And we are also blessed to have great employees in the county. And as the only thing I do agree with Leslie on, nobody's going to get rich working here.
Well, that's true. You're done?
I'm done.
Okay. So let me try to address some of the concerns that I have. Last year, we embarked on a wage study for our employees, and the parameters and the criteria for that wage study were agreed to by the entire elected officials, the entire group of elected officials in the county. And so we proceeded, and it was probably the 4th or 5th study in at least as many years. And the reason for that is because over those years, it was determined that our employees were underpaid anywhere from between 8 and 15%, depending on the particular study that we used. So what we did last year is we said, okay, look, we're going to take a big bite out of the apple and proceed and do what we could. We took a 3% increase. Now, last year you voted against the budget, but you had two concerns, as I recall. You wanted to take a two-phased approach to the wage increase, and you wanted us to reduce Economic Development Corp by roughly 50%. If we had taken that approach with the employees, we would have given you 1/2 of what you got last year, and now with the relatively low increase that you're getting this year, you would have fallen that much further behind. So from my perspective, the 2% you're getting this year is actually below the growth rate of the county, which is running at 2.5%. So the demand for services is still strong. People are moving, they're practically coming in from Tibet. Properties are going on the market, and they are disappearing with multiple offers. Many of those, by the way, are cash. About 30% of the market's cash, so there's big money coming in. And so I believe that what we did was right, and we're still holding to 0% tax increase this year from that perspective. As far as people being unemployed and businesses having been hurt, that's true. But it was announced very recently that the unemployment rate in Idaho has now dropped to 5%. And we're probably leading the nation for growth. And for those reasons, I believe that what we did is right to complement the various departments within our organization. You came in with lean budgets. You listened to the direction that we gave you, and we're bringing it in. We're bringing it in at zero. We're doing the best we can for the taxpayers of this community while still accommodating a very healthy growth rate. So I personally am in favor of the budget as proposed.
As a couple of clarifications. My two-phased approach was based on not half and half, but examining the departments that could not retain and could not hire people at the wages that they were at. And as Chairman stated, you know, we had some very difficult percentages to make up. So that's how I would have tackled it. Get those departments that are, you know, cannot hire people, get those straightened out first, and then address the ones that we are keeping and retaining down the road. So I'm going to say that. And the fact that Idaho Department of Labor, we had a great presentation recently, and they are expecting a recession for this area. We won't be hit as bad according to their predictions, but we still will see a downturn according to them. So I'm just trying to be sensitive to that. And I think that's all I have.
I am too. I'd like to be prepared for it, though. Okay. And I'm sure you would too, so. Bill, any final thoughts?
On So you ready for a motion?
Leslie, did you want to say anything further?
I'm good.
Okay, I'm done. Motion.
Okay, I move that we adopt the FY 2021 budget at the proposed amount adjusted for the APD reduction at $98,949,394.
Second?
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan,
Nay.
Chairman Philios,
Aye. And the motion is carried in a 2-to-1 vote. Budget is adopted as proposed by Commissioner Bill Brooks.
I seconded.
Leslie seconded to get it on for a motion. Yep.
Yep.
All right then? Okay. We have two more items that await us. Item H on your agenda, which is Resolution 2020-50, foregone taxes. What I should point out here before we proceed is that as a result of action taken in the last legislative session by our state legislature, in order for tax not taken this year to be able to be added to the foregone balance, which is money that we could have taxed for, but that we didn't think of it as a virtual account, we must take positive action to allocate that money. So, for example, today, we did not take 3% and we didn't take a fraction of it. So that 3%, if we choose to do so, will be added to our current foregone balance, which, and Dina, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is running around $9.5 million? Yes. Go right ahead, Dina, please.
So the resolution is up on the screen. So the 3% would have been $1,497,799 because that 3% was not taken. By approving this resolution, that goes into our foregone balance. So that will, the foregone balance will increase from 9.1 million, another 1.5 million. And that will just be taxing authority that's just sitting. That's not exactly money, but it is foregone taxing authority. So.
Okay, thank you. Leslie, Bill, thoughts?
So I am up in the air about this. On the one hand, I don't think we necessarily need to bank this. On the other hand, my concern is with future legislation. The the legislators I've talked to are convinced that next session, they will pass a bill that allows the 3% or new growth only. They will not allow counties or municipalities to take both for budget increases anymore. So I am not sure how that is even going to affect foregone balance. I'm not sure if they're going to say, well, if you take your 3%, you don't get to take foregone, or if they, if they're still going to allow foregone. So on the one hand, it's if they still allow foregone, then, it may be important to bank this. But on the other hand, I think we're doing a great job of keeping our costs down, and I'm not necessarily sure that we're going to need it. So once again, it's those insurance. You wish you had it if you didn't, but you don't really want to pay for it. So.
Thoughts?
I think it's something we should do. We should pass this resolution, and if we need it in the future, God forbid, it's there for us.
My thoughts are, when I served with Commissioners Bingham and Eberline, we on 2 occasions forewent the foregone. That is to say, we chose not to add to the foregone balance. And I did go along with it at that time. My concern this time, and I think Commissioner Leslie Duncan hit on it, we have a very aggressive legislature that I believe is operating, and I'll be very candid, on false premises. If you look at the state of Idaho, as in the national average, we are in the bottom 5 for property taxation. The residents of this county, the residents of the state in general, from a property tax perspective, are not overtaxed. Now, if you take total taxation, it's a little bit different. We pretty much fall in the middle of the pack on a nationwide ranking. And we do have programs to deal with those folks who have demonstrated hardship, and we can deal with it. I believe that if this legislature takes aggressive action to curb our taxing ability, and should an emergency occur or some sort of catastrophe, we may need to dip into the foregone. So right now, it costs us nothing to add this to the balance, especially our having, given up the last couple of years. So I am in favor of adding it to the foregone balance. If we never have an issue where we need to touch it, it never impacts the taxpayer. It's a virtual savings account, precisely. And that's the way I look at it. Anything else? Motion?
I move that we pass resolution number 2020-50.
I'll second.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Duncan,
Do it, Leslie, do it. We might never use it.
I know, I just can't. Nay.
Chairman Philios,
Aye. And the motion is carried. Okay, our final item. Decision regarding CARES property tax relief funding, and this is a potential action item. And for everybody's benefit, this is the proposal that the governor has made to allocate some $188 million of the $1.25 billion that was received or is being received from the federal government toward property tax relief. And the sum that we're dealing with, I don't like the word "the," it's supposed to be the sum that we're dealing with in the case of Kootenai County is approximately $10 million that would go for relief to our property taxpayers, but I'll turn it over to Leslie so she can comment on it.
So this is another one that's a really difficult position for commissioners to be in, because the Treasury's been very clear in their guidance, and their guidance says, and there's a lot of guidance, but one in particular to be focused is revenue replacement. And this, to me, is revenue replacement. It's property tax relief. It is a bunch of different things that I feel that we've had attorneys weigh in on. And so it's one of those things I want to provide relief for the citizens, absolutely. Is this the right vehicle to do that? I'm not so sure yet. So to me, this is still another one that I guess I have to have an answer probably in about 60 seconds, but.
Bill, thoughts?
This is one of those things, in my opinion, that I would like everything to be crystal clear, guaranteed and with no question whatsoever. But sometimes if you want to be a leader, you have to make a decision. And I intend to make a decision here for this.
So you're in favor?
Absolutely.
Okay. I do have some concerns. I think the governor's initiative is a very good one. But I have a couple of the same concerns, or at least one of the same concerns that Leslie has, and that is that I haven't seen anything in writing. I don't question the governor's cooperation and agreement with Treasury, but we haven't gotten very clear direction. Secondly, with regard to something that somebody in this room very graciously and very correctly pointed out to me, 30% of our outstanding mortgages in this county are escrowed. So that means people are paying mortgage, taxes, and insurance in a payment. So when this credit is affected, what happens is they'll see potential reduction, and the following year the adjustments have to be made, and not only back up to where they should have been, but potentially even higher. So logistically, this creates what could be a very serious issue. And much as I would like to see the same relief, in case if you're wondering, gee, what level is this relief? What I calculated based on the reduction in the mill rate that Keith Taylor came up with, if you had a net taxable value of $300,000 and we pass this, you'll see a relief of approximately $153. Now, that's pretty significant. You get up to a $500,000 home, and of course, it's a lot higher. But the risks are always there. And I should also mention that our auditor has some serious concerns with this as well, and this is an outside auditing company. So much as I'd like to see the relief passed on to the taxpayers, I'd also hate to see them foot with a bill that would force us into foregone if, in fact, we do have to refund this money in one form or another. So I'm not going to be able to go along with it.
Barry, are you comfortable with being put on the spot? Steve, you're next.
Sure. Barry McHugh for the record. Question being?
How comfortable are you? I know that the attorneys, prosecuting attorneys across the state had some concerns about this. Now with the governor coming out and saying that he has verbal affirmation that he himself is comfortable with this program being accepted by the Treasury, does that change your opinion?
It doesn't. We've had verbal confirmation from any number of sources within the state government, whether it's the AG's office or now the governor saying they've got verbal confirmation. That doesn't, I mean, as much as I might like to, you know, if it was a different situation and it was my personal sort of situation, maybe I'd feel more comfortable, but this is the county. And I think that the commissioners need to have more. I'd like to see something in writing. I don't know why they can't put it in writing, that they're going to guarantee that this won't be a problem down the line. And for that reason, I haven't changed my opinion.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Barry? Sir. Just quickly, if President Trump were to lose, is that a factor here? Could a new administration potentially come in and say, no, we're not going to do this? Or do you believe this would be effected before November? I don't know.
Well,
I'm throwing
anytime
that
there's
out.
a turnover, I guess, in administration, the bigger problem is when are we going to find out?
Yeah,
As
precisely.
everyone knows, if the presidency was to change, so many positions change, which means there's not going to be either the direction we get, even if we get it in writing down the road, it may change then in January. And so to me, I don't know if that is going to affect a change, but I guess it's possible.
Okay, thank you.
I think my concern is not necessarily administration, but 2 years, 3 years down the road when they decide to audit the CARES thing, when things have settled down. I think that's where I'm more concerned, not short term, but long term. And who knows what state anything's going to be in 3 years from now, and then to have to maybe pay penalties and interest. And the fact also is, if we are found negligent in taking federal funds, this could affect Federal Transit Authority funds for our CityLink. It can't affect FAA,
The airport.
for the airport funds, which the airport relies heavily on funds to keep up the runways and make changes. So thanks, Barry. Appreciate it. So, Jim, do you have anything to add? Oh, sorry, Steve, are you? Okay, Jim, you're next.
Jim, we're going to provide you with jet assist, I think.
I think this was a poorly conceived concept, horribly executed, not supported by fact. With that said, I agree with Bill.
You agree with Bill that we should take it? Can I ask why?
For the exact reason why he said,
Take the risk.
take the risk.
Wow. So let's take a hypothetical but potentially real situation. To Leslie's earlier point, say 2 or 3 years from now, we're in recession. New administration, short of cash, they review the CARES Act and the way the funding was distributed, and they come and say, okay, Kootenai, $10 million, let's go. You got 30 days.
That's the risk.
Okay.
It's a tough decision. It is your decision. It's not mine. Good luck.
Thanks.
Well, I was going to say that it is your decision.
Gee, thanks for reminding
But
us
our
again.
auditors have weighed in very clearly that they do believe it's double dipping if we use it for some of the things that were proposed. We have seen different municipalities take it and some didn't. And so, good luck.
Just out of curiosity, Jim, if you happen to know, is Coeur d'Alene taking it?
They
Yes.
did,
They did.
yes.
Post Falls, well, no, they're going for 3% this year, is that correct? So
Right,
they cannot take
because you
it.
can't do both,
Can't
as
do
you
both.
are aware. Yeah, they're taking the full 3%, and so they can't take CARES Act money, because you have to take zero property
In order to be
tax.
able to do that. What about Hayden? Is Hayden taking it?
Hayden's taking their 3%.
They're
Their
taking
levy rate
3%?
is so low that they can't
Okay.
afford.
Right.
Fair enough.
So, again, good luck.
Thank you. So here's my proposal. There is no action needed tonight unless we were going to deny it. And I will call the governor's office tomorrow and just say that we're not ready to make a formal, or actually find out when the drop dead date is. We're the ones who said we want until this, assuming that we were going to get written confirmation. So I am usually risk averse, but in this case, I may take the risk. But I want to call the governor's office just to see if we have more time to think about it, and if by chance, there's also a third stimulus bill coming down that does deal with property tax or revenue replacement specifically. If that's passed, then it would be very difficult to pass this up, because they can't come back and say, you know, you used it for the wrong thing when they passed another bill. So I would suggest no action on it tonight, and I will call the governor's office to get a firm date in the future and make sure that this board's aware of when that decision finally has to be made.
I thought tonight was the drop dead.
Tonight's the drop dead as far as that's what we told them, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what they are expecting. We set the date.
Oh, we set the date.
So is there a date they set?
Yeah, that's what we need to know.
That's what I'm going to find out tomorrow. The L2 is due when? Okay.
We'll let you know that day.
Okay.
Mid-September.
Okay, so that is also, that has to do with certifying levies and all that. So I'm thinking that we would probably have until then, because once our levy is certified, then there won't be any changes. So,
I see Steve coming forward, please.
I believe this is a budget hearing.
That is correct.
I think that's the decision in front of you. Maybe you are able to delay this, but are you then delaying the adoption of the budget?
No,
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 they're,
the budget's already been voted on.
yeah, they're two separate items.
So if you guys choose to opt in, that will change the dollar amount of taxes collected.
So my understanding is, and maybe you know more than this, that they are going to change the levy rate, that the state is going to change the levy rate. And so on our part, we don't do anything. They send us a check, they change the levy rate, and that's how the distribution's going to happen. Do you know something different?
I guess I'm not certain with that explanation.
Okay.
I'm asking the question. I don't have the answer.
Thanks.
Thanks for sitting in the back, Steve. Yeah, that's what I was going to mention about the levy rate. We were told that if this is taken, they are going to make all of the calculations for us. Now, as a guy who has been here 7 years setting levy rates, I know how many times I have found discrepancies in what the state has said and what we have done. So I'm going to say, yeah, that sounds good, but do you trust them?
Okay.
Because once we accept it, the levy rate will be changing.
Right.
Okay. Council, if I call for a vote tonight and it's a tie vote, what does that mean?
How would you have a tie vote?
Well, Leslie might choose to abstain.
Well, right now, as it stands, we're opted in. So if you call for a vote, we're still opted in. We won't be opted out unless you have a second.
Yeah, I guess to answer your question, Commissioner, it would be no action.
There would be no action, so we remain opted in.
Yep. But I'm not saying that I'm on board, and I'm not saying that I'm going to throw it away. I just, this is too important, I think, to...
I think it's important too, but I think the facts are clear. At least they're clear to me. You introduce more variables, you introduce greater uncertainty. That's the way markets price. They price for time and they price for uncertainty. And I still think this is a very risky move. It's not, to me, it's even beyond a calculated risk. And so, while there's nothing to lose, if we wind up with a tie vote, then we simply remain opted in. And that being the case, I am going to call for a vote. Is there a motion?
Well, before we make a motion, if we in fact have more time, then take more time.
But the time you're going to take is simply going to add to, I mean, it's going to basically say, well, you don't have to make a decision until a certain point in time. I don't know that we're going to gain any more clarity.
Well,
That
Les is
might
going to try
not.
to get some more clarity,
I'm going
right?
to try to get some more clarity.
And we
Absolutely.
might have some.
But what, if they've already refused to give us anything in writing, what is it that we expect to get?
I don't know, but I'm not going to put anybody in a box. I'm going to say, I'm just going to take this time to hope.
Right, but I think we need to pass it, but not necessarily tonight, because the people of Kootenai County talk about something people want, it's some relief from taxes, and I support that. And if we have to do that with some modicum of risk, at least the community knows that, because we're being very upfront about that.
Well, and part of the issue too was I really wanted to hit a campaign hard, and because of some limitations we've had this last week, we have not had enough, for me, enough public input. Because I've had some very conservative people say, nope, I'm not for it, ditch it. And then I've had some, other conservative people saying, anytime you can give us any relief, we want relief. So I don't have a clear path forward. And so as it stands, it's opted in. I will clarify with Governor, make sure when we need to have the final answer, and then we will get that on a duly noted, properly agendized meeting.
Okay.
And address it again.
I think it's real important to make a distinction of something that was said earlier. With the committee that we put together to
You mean the COVID task force?
vet these expenses. We've done, as they say, and it really is an appropriate word, our due diligence. And there's a difference between making a mistake and doing something that's fraudulent. It can have the same effect. But I don't think anybody would suggest on this level, the state level, or the federal level, that we have done anything fraudulent.
Oh, no.
Okay, but that's important.
Okay. My concern, and I guess we can leave it at that, is that if we embark down this path, if it turns out that we have some leeway on the deadline and we pass it, and we embark on a construction project, and something comes down that says, sorry, Kootenai, you owe us $10 million, and we're in the middle of a construction project, what happens? You don't have to answer the question, but it's something we need to ponder. And again, introduce more variables, you introduce more risk. But we can wait, let's see what they have to say, and we'll just go from there. So if there's nothing further, and I assume there is not, okay. That concludes our final item. We've already been open for public comment. The time is now 7:04, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very, very much.